Hello everyone, my name is Salman SK for Coffee and RPGs, and I want to say thank you so much for clicking on today's video of Top 25 MMORPGs for the year 2021 and beyond. Two things that I wanted to mention before we go on. First of all, I wanted to say that this video could have easily topped 50 or even 100 games, but the reason why I decided not to go that far is because a lot of these games are crowdfunded, and in my opinion, a lot of these crowdfunded MMORPGs are unfortunately kind of sketch and they don't really show a whole lot of promise, and I wish that wasn't the case, but look what happened with Chronicles of Illyria for one example. There are a few here, and you know, I've included it just because I thought they showed a lot of promise, or they actually were unique enough for me to cover it because they do something so drastic against that status quo of MMORPGs. Secondly, it kind of irritates me just a little bit when a lot of companies out there claim that their game on the mobile platform is an MMORPG when it's clearly not in a traditional sense. So the only time I've included mobile titles in this list is if it is cross-platform with the PC or the consoles. A really good example of that would be Genshin Impact if it were to be an MMORPG, but I think a better example is actually V4. So let's go ahead and get started. If you guys got your cup ready with your coffee or beverage of choice, let's go over these games together. Cheers to you guys.
Consider hitting the subscribe button down below, as well as the bell notification right next to it. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and get started. Since Cyberpunk 2077 was just released and everybody's on that Cyberpunk high, I figured we'd start off with another Cyberpunk game here called Corepunk. There aren't a whole lot of Cyberpunk MMORPGs out there, but this is definitely going to be one of them, but it will add elements of both steampunk as well as dark fantasy to this game as well. One of the things right off the bat, as you could see, is that this MMORPG is going to have that top-down isometric view very similar to what you see in Diablo. They will support a buy-to-play business model with a microtransaction system with cosmetics only and a battle pass system as well, and they claim it will have no effect on the gameplay itself. PvE and PvP will definitely be included with an open world PvP as well, with a karma system in place to prevent unfair PKing, and they also have dungeons as well, and they even have a procedurally generated dungeon for those of you who want to change things up a little bit. And the next game for this list is Project V, and this game definitely goes against the grain and the status quo in many ways as well. First of all, it's going to take elements of MOBA games, for example League of Legends or Dota, and combine it with the type of adventure that you would normally get in an MMORPG dungeon raid. Matter of fact, they're actually coining the phrase MOCO for this one, M-O-C-O, which stands for Multiplayer Online Co-op. And yes, this game actually will have elements of both PvP and PvE. Matter of fact, CEO Travis George says that gameplay is about playing the game and improving, but set it in a world that has interesting characters and the world evolves and things are happening. To be completely honest with you, I absolutely have no idea what this game will even look like. I'm not much of a MOBA player myself. I never touch League of Legends. I've seen people play it, and there's definitely a lot of salt when well, I'll just leave it at that. But how you would actually implement MOBA games with MMO dungeon raiding is something that I can't even put the two together. But we do have the likes of another game that's very similar to this that's not an MMO called Ruined King, and this game is actually being developed by Riot and will add elements to RPGs as well as MOBAs together. But obviously I can't include that game in this list because it's not an MMO, but still pretty interesting nonetheless. And the next title in this list is Chrono Odyssey, and this game actually was announced not too long ago, and the details of this game actually is pretty scarce because of that. But NPixel did describe this as a fantasy MMORPG, but with the twist in that it's a space-time epic fantasy, massively multiplayer online RPG themed around time and space. And I'm actually really excited about that last part, because as you go around the map, or in this case around time, you'll have very distinct locations set in a particular time of human history, and so you'll have various landscapes out there that might look like ancient Rome in one area, but also look like something from Asia or Africa in various times of human history and stuff like that. So this has a lot of potential to really inspire and give you that sense of awe as you travel around the world. Now, the testing for this game is planned sometime in 2021 with a release window of 2022, and it is being developed for the PC, the iOS, as well as Android devices, and will utilize the Unreal Engine 4 for its graphics. I couldn't really find the official webpage for ArcheAge 2, and that's the next MMO that we are talking about in this list. But I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of want to go over briefly because ArcheAge is just one of those games that brings a whole lot of salt, and for good reason too, in my opinion. If you didn't know already, ArcheAge, the original one that's out right now, is probably one of the worst offenders when it comes to pay-to-win microtransactions. Despite that, the game still is relatively successful, and I'm really hoping ArcheAge 2 will be less about pay-to-win microtransactions and more about its players. Anyway, so less with the speculations, what we do know about ArcheAge 2 is that it will be utilizing the Unreal Engine 5, and they did a tech demo, I believe, in one of the press conferences from Sony of their new engine, and it looks just astounding and just absolutely beautiful. I definitely recommend checking it out. But ArcheAge 2 will definitely still be a sandbox MMORPG, and in my opinion, that's not a bad thing at all. And it will include various things, including housing, sea warfare, mounts such as cars and ships with improved physics animations and whatnot. So I definitely do hope that they are able to capture that sandboxness of the game, excuse me if that's a word, and just bring it out and just make it even better. And as far as the lore goes, ArcheAge 2 will actually be somewhat related to the first one, but it will actually take place in a different time and in a different dimension or universe altogether. More information for this game is planned to be released in the first half of 2021, so again, if you like what you see, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below as well as the bell notification icon, and I will keep you guys posted as we get more information. And the next game on this list is none other than Crimson Desert, and I have to admit, they just released a new trailer during the Game Awards about a week ago, and the game is just absolutely breathtaking. Gorgeous graphics, gorgeous scenery, the designs of the environment, the armor, the people. It's just, man, what a gorgeous looking game. And obviously, yes, if it looks very familiar, that's because it's being developed over from the people at Pearl Abyss, the same Pearl Abyss that made Black Desert Online. Now, if you didn't know already, Crimson Desert actually has nothing to do with Black Desert. They're set in a separate universe, separate timeline, separate everything. Matter of fact, there's a part of me that it's almost hesitant to call this an MMO. It's going to be a story-driven RPG, action RPG rather, that will have some sort of multiplayer and online co-op capabilities to it from what I could read so far. Because again, it just doesn't really make sense to me for Pearl Abyss to come out with a product to compete with itself unless that product was an entirely different category or genre altogether. But this doesn't seem to be the case. It's set in the fantasy world and just very familiar to the Black Desert Online world from what I can tell. So again, for all intents and purposes, I will call this an MMORPG, but I think they're going to switch it up just a little bit. So again, like I said earlier, they don't compete with themselves. But this game is planned to be released by the end of 2021 for the PC and console, so we definitely have something to look forward to then. And for somebody who enjoyed playing Genshin Impact but wanted something a little bit more in a form of an online game or at least an MMORPG, look no further than Blue Protocol. It is being developed by Bandai Namco on the Unreal Engine 4, and obviously I don't need to tell you that we don't have a whole lot of good Japanese style MMORPGs out there, so that's why I'm really looking forward to this one. Matter of fact, they actually did wrap up their second or third closed beta test not too long ago, and as far as I can tell, this game is on its way to be released in 2021, at the very least 2022 in my opinion. Now this game will be an action RPG, so no tab targeting here, and will also have your standard MMORPG features such as world bosses and dungeons as well, but do know that they're not really focusing on PvP a whole lot in my opinion, or from what I can tell. So if you're looking more forward to anime RPGs with PvP in it, then unfortunately Blue Protocol might not be for you, but otherwise I think it's probably going to be an an awesome and amazing game. And the next MMO in our list is none other than Dual Universe. This game actually has more in common, in my opinion, with Minecraft than anything else, but it is being described as a game that combines the elements of Minecraft, No Man's Sky, Space Engineers, as well as Star Citizen, and that of in itself makes it a pretty ambitious project. As you can see from the trailer that I have playing right now, you could actually craft many things in the game, including your own spaceships, vehicles, your own housing, and you could even alter the terrain of various portions of the planet and whatnot. So this game really gives you the freedom to do almost anything and create anything as well. And one of the more interesting and important things about this game is that they actually use a server technology that they called SCCS, which stands for Continuous Single Shard Cluster. And basically what that means is that it allows players to share a continuously single server, or universe in this case, without the need for instancing zones and load-in screens. So everything is just completely streamlined in a single universe, which just absolutely blows my mind. I think that's probably the next evolution of MMOs, in my opinion, is just having a single server for everybody to play in, rather than having different realms, for example, in World of Warcraft. Now, this next game on our list is definitely for the people who want to do a little less violent things that doesn't involve swords and guns and stuff like that, and it comes in the form of a game called Riders Republic. Now, the 5 main activities that you could do in this game include mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, swimsuit flying, and even rocket swingsuiting, which is exactly how it sounds. You put a swingsuit and put a rocket on top of yourself, I guess. I don't know. Now, I will admit I'm a little less inclined to call this game an MMORPG in a traditional sense. Rather, in this game, you have special social hubs where you could actually gather together with other people who are playing the game. But once you leave that social hub, you actually go into the sort of the real world, the persistent world, but it's only limited up to 50 people per instanced world, and it's a lot less for console users, and it's only 20 for you guys. Nonetheless, you actually still get to go out in the world and come across people, not with guns and knives, but with bikes and snowboards and stuff like that. So in any event, I do think that this game is pretty interesting, definitely going against the grain in terms of your stereotypical violent games out there. So good on Ubisoft for them for trying something a little new. And the next MMORPG that I wanted to talk about is called Rise, and it's being developed by a company called NXN. Now, it's set in the medieval fantasy world, just like almost every other MMORPG out there. Now, what's really interesting about this game, and I don't know why I have to say it that way today, but it's actually being developed solely for the PC and the console first, rather than just having it outright as a cross-platform compatible game with the mobile platform. Now, I don't necessarily know if that means this game will be cross-compatible with its PC and console and eventually mobile counterparts, but an article that I read from MMOculture.com seems to suggest that they're actually going to take assets from this game from the PC port and then make its own version for the mobile platform later. Very similar to the way you see Black Desert Online came out with its mobile port. Like, there's some elements that actually look very similar to the game for the PC and console counterparts, but they're completely two separate games for all intents and purposes. But anyways, we actually don't have a whole lot of information with this game. No gameplay from what I can tell, just a bunch of CGI trailers that look really cool in my opinion. But yeah, we got more fantasy MMORPGs for you if that's sort of your thing. And the next game that we are talking about, give me a chance to explain why I included it, and that's Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. And you might be asking yourself, why would you include a game that has been in Japan for almost a decade? Well, I'm glad you asked. There is a lot of confusion as to what New Genesis is, and it's not going to be an expansion, nor is it an upgrade of the original game. Rather, this game actually is an entirely separate game from Phantasy Star Online 2. The only thing it really shares is its name, and I kind of understand why they did that, but at the same time I don't, because again, caused a lot of confusion, but at the same time they kind of need to push that Phantasy Star IP out there for its, I guess, star power or brand recognizability, if that's a word. But anyways, and second, you might think to yourself, well, I already knew that, and this clearly isn't an MMORPG anymore considering the way it plays. And to that I would say, yeah, that's kind of true, but it is my list, so I'm going to include it anyways because it has that Phantasy Star Online 2 name in it. And if you didn't know already, yes, it's less of an MMO this time around. They're using the term open field online RPG, and so to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that sounds more similar to the way Riders Republic plays, the game that I mentioned earlier, or maybe even Dauntless if I'm not mistaken, in such that you actually have a social hub or a safe zone, and once you exit out of that safe zone, you are in the explorable world, but you're only going to see maybe a handful to a dozen other players with multiple, I guess, versions of that explorable zone. But if you're somebody who does play Phantasy Star Online 2, you actually get to use some of your assets from that game into New Genesis, but there are a few limitations. For example, I believe progress won't carry over. But the entire graphics engine, as well as the game's systems, is being upgraded for next generation gameplay. And Sega did also say that these two games will coexist as twin universes. I really tried to give Phantasy Star Online 2 a go, but unfortunately, the graphics and the way it played was a little too clunky and outdated for me. But fortunately, along with New Genesis, we also get news that Phantasy Star Online 2 itself will get a graphical overhaul. So when that rolls out, I'll definitely have to give it another try to see if I like the new look and feel to it. And another game that I wanted to cover because of its uniqueness, I mean, especially this game, and that game is Book of Travels. And as always, I do have the trailer playing right now, and clearly this is a very beautiful game. Matter of fact, all the scenes that you see here are all hand painted or hand drawn. They're really trying to emphasize the atmospheric sort of landscape and the environment for this particular game. And in another way that it kind of deviates from the stereotypical MMO path is that enemy encounters are actually going to be exceptionally rare, and that's because they really want to emphasize the sort of repercussions and the consequences of, say, killing a thief or defeating a monster, and some of the things that could mean for you and your character. It's all about feelings in this game, at least that's the impression that I get, for lack of a better term. But anyways, again, this game is just absolutely beautiful, and the imagery in this game is probably none of which I've ever seen in any MMO, so if this is something that you're definitely interested in, again, I'll have the links down in the pinned comment section below. And the next game that I wanted to talk about is Project TL, and yes, this game actually is a sequel from the original Lineage MMORPG from NCSoft. If you didn't know already, this game went through constant reiterations and overhaul after overhaul after overhaul. Matter of fact, this game was announced back in 2011 and we still haven't got a release of the game yet. Now, what sets this MMO apart from the others is obviously its isometric top-down camera view, very similar to Kornpunk that we mentioned earlier. It will also have your standard MMORPG elements as well in terms of its classes and its attributes and stuff like that, and it also will have large-scale PvP systems in a form of siege battles. NCSoft has kept us in the dark in terms of its development for the longest time, but it wasn't until around the end of 2020 that NCSoft started to release more information about where they are in the development. And yes, they are developing the game, and hopefully we'll even get a closed beta at the very least by 2021. Now, this next game is definitely going to be on the and beyond part of the title of this video, and that's none other than Star Citizen itself. Just to be clear, I am a backer of this game, and this is probably one of the most anticipated games that I'm looking forward to personally, but I totally understand if you're not. I think the sunk cost fallacy is definitely prevalent here, as well as feature creep that just made the game be pushed back years and years and years after year. And yeah, I think that's a legitimate criticism. But if you are somebody who doesn't know anything about this game, it is probably one of the most ambitious games ever being developed, in my opinion. Just by looking at the trailer that I have playing, they actually have an expansive universe where they have various planets with various ecosystems, and you can fly ships and colonize and do all sorts of trading and combat, and just Yeah, I can't even explain how ambitious that Roberts is trying to make this game. But again, I'm not a super fan. I think it's pretty rational to praise him when he does something good and criticize him when he does something bad. But if you're somebody who doesn't mind waiting for a while and just want to play a game where the sky is the metaphorical limit here, I think Star Citizen has the potential to truly be an amazing game if the promises are kept and it's not as buggy as the alpha tests are right now, unfortunately. Because the freedom to do almost anything you want and be whoever you want out there in space is something that truly makes my heart just tingle a little bit. And yeah, that's why I'm really looking forward to this game. But I received many messages in the comment section below saying that they just given up on it, and I really don't blame you. And the next game that we will talk about is none other than Lost Ark, but mark my words, I know a lot of us have been waiting for this game on the Western Shores for a very long time, but I think 2021 is going to be the year we finally get this game, if not at the very least a beta, because not too long ago, I believe 3 or 2 months ago, Amazon Games actually signed a publishing rights contract with Smilegate, and I think that actually means something. As far as I can tell, Smilegate isn't really making any games or new games right now, and the only thing that I could think of that everybody wants to play like right now is Lost Ark. With that being said, if you're looking for an MMORPG with a very similar gameplay style and mechanics as say Core Punk or even Project TL that we mentioned earlier, Lost Ark is probably going to be the game for you, if not even more than those games as far as I can tell, dare I say. There is a lot of elements from MMORPGs that we could expect from this game, including large-scale PvP battles, PvE farming, grinding, even player housing. You could even have your own ships and other types of mounts, and the list just goes on and on and on. On top of that, in my opinion, it's probably one of the most beautiful-looking isometric MMORPGs out there in the market. This game is already out in Japan and Russia, so again, as I said earlier, the only logical sense is to have this game finally officially released in the Western Shores. And the next MMO in this list is Crowfall, and this is definitely one of those games that is trying to redefine what is considered an MMORPG, and the fact that it's considering itself as an MMORPG RTS. So yes, they are combining the elements of a massively multiplayer online role-playing game with real-time strategy. This is definitely one of those games where I feel like I have to play to fully understand rather than reading the description, but reading the description does make it sound a whole lot of fun, admittedly. First of all, you actually do have a player character that could pretty much go anywhere, but the game's world system is something that sets it apart from other MMORPGs out there, and in their version of the game world, they are also called campaigns. And there's 5 different worlds, or campaigns in this case, and each world, or again campaign, is procedurally generated, and so once you go into the world, it actually has its own life and death cycle going through seasons, starting from spring and ending until winter. And even though at the end of winter the world disappears, you as a character still remain, but each campaign could actually go anywhere between 1, 3, 6 months, or even an entire year, which to me sounds very similar to how survival MMORPGs are played. And as for the RTS aspect of the game, I'm assuming that you are in a fixed camera pointed up, very similar to what you see in Diablo. And at the start of each campaign or start of each world, you're allowed to go through the world and discover villages and gather resources. And once you gather those resources, you actually use them to defend yourself against other monsters or mobs in the world, as well as other players as well. And as I mentioned earlier, they do go through seasons, and so by the time you get to summer, you might find some of the mobs to be a lot more powerful, but resources also being scarce at the same time. So there's a lot of dynamic changes going on depending on what world you are in, what time of the season you are in the world, and so this definitely makes the game a lot more appealing with regards to it doing something a little different. So that's something I could definitely appreciate. And the next MMO we will be going over definitely fits on the and beyond side of things more than anything else, and that is the new Lord of the Rings MMO developed by Amazon Game Studios. I couldn't find anything official for this one, so I'll just be playing a trailer from the original Lord of the Rings online game, as well as referring to this article that I used in a previous episode describing on some of the things that they have in store for the new MMO. And it goes on to read that the team hopes that a playable prototype will be ready by June of 2021, a closed beta by the end of September of the following year, with an open beta slated for January of 2023. What it looks like, how things will turn out, nobody really knows. It's all speculation at this point. But just to kind of sidetrack just a little bit, we do have Lord of the Rings TV series that is being produced by Amazon with a budget of $500 million. And to kind of go along with that, the original Lord of the Rings online game is actually getting some pretty needed graphical updates. So yeah, a lot of good things for Lord of the Ring online fans out there, or just Lord of the Ring fans in general. And the next game on our list is Ember Sword, and this by far is probably one of the more unique MMORPGs you'll ever play. Now, it is a free-to-play browser MMORPG for the PC, which its economy is actually very player-driven, but that's because it's tied to the blockchaining cryptocurrency Ethereum. I try to come up with my own way of describing the game with regards to the cryptocurrency, but I'm not really that financial literate, so I luckily found this article here from the medium.com, and it goes on to say that it's a universe where the players control the world through true land ownership, and where all valuable cosmetic items are tokenized as scarce non-fungible crypto collectibles, which are acquired by players through gameplay objectives instead of sold through loot boxes. So basically, when I read that, pretty much everything that you have and pretty much everything that you own and create, including land apparently, actually ties in some way with the cryptocurrency itself. Really quick, I just wanted to add that the relation that this game has with Ethereum is that it will use the same blockchaining technology, and that the actual cryptocurrency that the game will utilize is something called the pixel token. Sorry for the confusion. So again, I think this has a potential to be really huge, considering I truly believe that in terms of the financial markets, this truly is the future instead of using the fiat currency that everybody else uses. But that's just me. If you want to take a look at this article, it will be down in the pinned comment section below. And the next MMORPG on this list is definitely on the unique side of things, and that is none other than Naïca. I know a lot of you who are into retro gaming are probably looking forward to this, considering its whole, I guess, spiel, or the attractiveness of this game is the fact that it's not your standard stereotypical 3D MMORPG, and so the pixel art on this, in my opinion, is beautifully done. Yes, you could actually play this MMO on your PC or even your Mac, but you could also play it on your iOS or Apple devices if you're on the go. And yes, it does include your standard MMORPG elements such as PvE quests, dungeons, and even PvP. There are also 5 races available and adaptive classes as well. They're continuing to beta test this game, and in my opinion, we could expect a full launch sometime in 2021. Now, in terms of hype and just a game that a lot of players are looking forward to, it's going to be none other than Ashes of Creation. This game actually almost came out of nowhere. Or, matter of fact, they actually had a pretty rough earlier year in 2022 because they made a battle royale mode that nobody actually really wanted, and yeah, that's this game. But you know what, they listened to their players and they started to develop a game and put out updates for it, and man, it just garnered a lot of attention. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are trying to add both elements of sandbox and theme park together in one MMO. And one of the aspects from that is their node system, which pretty much is a system of the map, I guess, or in a form of territories, which players can, I guess, conquer or claim and develop the land such that it grows into a bigger town and build castles. And the bigger this settlement becomes, the more benefits you get, such as resources and money, I would assume. But the nodes themselves actually have a limitation. If one city is too big, the nodes surrounding it can't grow any bigger either, so that will promote sort of a war, if you will, so that other players can actually make their towns grow bigger for different resources and stuff like that. So it's very dynamic in a sense of its world building, and a lot of people are looking forward to that. I would actually categorize Ashes of Creation on the same level with Star Citizen in terms of its ambition, because they are trying to make something or a form of a gameplay that actually has never been done before, and if it has, I sure as heck never heard of it. And the next game that we will talk about is Elyon Assent Infinite Realm, and this game has been going through its ups and downs. Luckily, Crafton got on the ball really quick and was able to remedy some of the things that the original iteration of the game severely lacked, and it just wasn't a fun game, essentially. They changed it from a tab targeting to an action RPG, improved the visuals, got rid of some of the clutter, if you will, and some of the aerial combat that nobody really found that fun and fascinating, unfortunately. And I think one of the criticisms so far that's pretty valid is the fact that it actually plays more like Terra Online more than anything else, but again, I still think that's an upgrade from its original iteration. Now, I won't lie to you, I do still want to play this game, but not as much anymore, because when they improved the game, they actually went away from that original steampunk style that they were putting forth in all their advertisements. As far as I can tell, there really isn't any steampunk MMORPGs out there, and I thought this game could have been the one, but with the way it looks, it just kind of looks like your typical Korean MMORPG, and that might not necessarily be a bad thing, but I was really looking forward to this one for its steampunk aesthetics and all that other stuff. But yeah, I still will play it. I'm still looking forward to it. It may even surprise me at the end of the day, but considering that it did release in Korea with a buy-to-play model with its cosmetic cash shop, yeah, I certainly will give it a try at least. Now, to those of you who want to play a MMORPG based on Norse mythology, look no further than Odin Valhalla Rising. This game is being developed over in South Korea, with its publisher being Kakao Games, the same Kakao Games that published Black Desert Online, although that's no longer going to be the case, but that's a different story. Now, do be, I guess, warned, for lack of a better term, this is a cross-platform MMORPG for the mobile platform and the PC as well. Now, I will admit, if this is an actual true MMORPG in the traditional sense, they've included the fact that the world is going to be seamless and have no map loading times, which is really impressive, especially for the mobile platform. Now, we actually don't have a whole lot of information regarding its release date or the beta tests and all that, but in a recent trailer, I believe that they played during the G-Star 2020 convention, or the online version of it at least, they did say it will be released sometime in 2021. And the next game that we will be talking about is Camelot Unchained, and I know some of you have maybe been a little irked for what Mark Jacobs did about half a year ago, when it seemed like he was making or developing another game when he should have been concentrating his efforts on Camelot Unchained. But in my opinion, I think he redeemed himself, because after that it seemed like he learned from those mistakes and really dished out a lot of content and updates for Camelot Unchained, in my opinion. Now, this game is considered to be the spiritual successor to Dark Age of Camelot, although Jacobs himself denied that. Now, if you're looking for a future MMORPG with PvP as its main focus, then this game actually might be for you. As you can tell from the trailer that I have playing, huge siege warfare is going to be one of the biggest things in this game. Matter of fact, server versus server, or realm versus realm, whatever you want to call it, is going to be one of the big factors, or features rather, for this game. And like Dark Age of Camelot, it will also borrow Arthurian legend as well as Norse mythology and Irish mythology as well, in terms of setting up its lore and world. And the next game in our list is a game called Uncharted Waters Origins. And yes, this MMO is actually being developed from the Japanese IP called Uncharted Waters. Matter of fact, there's another MMO based on the same IP called Uncharted Waters Online. But anyways, this particular one called Origins will be released for the Steam platform as well as the mobile platforms as well. And the game boasts some pretty interesting statistics, including the promise of over 200 ports to explore, over 1,000 NPC characters to meet, about 4,000 discoveries to be made and over 1,000 cultural items to be claimed as well. Definitely not a Sea of Thieves type of game. Matter of fact, I think they're definitely catering towards a demographic that lean more towards the mobile aspect of the platform. But in any event, if you do want to play this on Steam, you have your chance to do so. So out of all the lesser known crowdfunded MMORPGs out there, for whatever reason, I always find this one to be particularly interesting and its past fate. They were able to reach their Kickstarter goal of over $25,000 not too long ago. Now, this game is being developed by a small group of people, so you're not going to have any of that AAA gaming experience here. But considering that fact and looking at the trailer that I have playing right now, it looks like a really interesting game that's very well polished, again, considering the fact. And yes, this game will include various elements of MMORPGs, although it does look like they're going more towards the sandbox end of things. Matter of fact, you could actually hire your own crew to assist you in naval combat against other monsters and enemies, and including other players as well. You could even hire your own mercenaries and help you defend your kingdom in a time of war against, again, other players as well. Now, if you do go to their Steam page, it does say that it was supposed to come out back in summer of 2020. That's long been passed, and they haven't updated it yet, unfortunately. So I'm really hoping they don't go along the ways of Chronicles of Illyria. But again, I don't have anything to really say that that's the direction that they're going. But in any event, I have high expectations of this game, and I can't wait to play it myself when it finally comes out. If you are an MMORPG fan, this next game needs no introduction, and it's none other than The New World. This game was originally supposed to come out this year, but Amazon Games decided that it needs to be overhauled one way or another, and so it's been delayed at the very least till 2021. But even then, I feel like the game might potentially be even delayed even more, considering the whole COVID situation that's going on right now. I did partake in the density test, I believe it was, with my friends and my co-host who does the podcast with me over on Twitch, and I must admit I had more fun than I thought, because truth be told, my expectation of the game wasn't all that high. But could this be a game that I spend a lot of time with? Absolutely. There's a lot of good things going for it. I mean, I believe that it still needs a whole lot of polish, but the large-scale PvPs at endgame is something that I look forward to, the siege battles. And I'm gonna get this out of the way right now. I'm a huge sucker for player housing, which you can have in this game, and buy furnishings and put them up and just make your home a place where you could actually craft things with those furnishings. The way you level up your character and apply your weapon and trading skills is something that I find super interesting as well. So yeah, I'm really rooting for Amazon right now, considering that they don't really have the best track record right now, especially since that they canceled a game called something Crucible or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. And so yeah, they unreleased the game and then just flat out canceled it. So not looking too good, but I'm definitely rooting for you guys over at Amazon Games with The New World. So yeah. And that concludes today's episode of Top 25 MMORPGs for the year 2021 and beyond. I really do appreciate it if you made it with me so far, and if you feel as though I have earned your subscription, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below, as well as the bell notification icon right next to it. I'm considering making an honorables mentions list, because I feel like there's a lot of MMOs out there that I could have covered but I didn't, but deserve some airtime anyways to help complement this video that I created today. Let me know down in the comment section below if you'd like that video, because these videos can take a long time recording, researching, and all that kind of stuff, so definitely let me know. But anyways, it was a lot of games to go over, so I'll finally let you guys go. Hope you guys have a blessed night, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers again, everyone.